Leila Hormozi wouldn't have been able to sell Gym Launch for $46 million and build acquisition.com into a $200 million plus a year business if she didn't know how to attract and hire the right people. So in this video, I'm gonna break down her most brutally honest hiring advice. And as someone who's helped hire over 1,000 remote employees and built multiple seven-figure businesses, all with remote talent, I'm curious to see if her approach lines up with mine, or if she has some strategies that I haven't thought of yet. So let's dive in.
You know, we got to the point where these managers overhired, they hired the wrong people. And I woke up one day when we'd done our biggest month ever, 4.5 million, and I was like, I fucking hate this company. And so that's why this topic is actually really important to me, because I think a lot of people look at that and they say, like, what can you do to protect your culture? How do you prevent people, the good people, from leaving? You know, how do you make sure you keep the wrong people? And I'm like, it all starts with the hiring process. So like when people, it's very similar to customer churn. Everyone looks at customer churn and they say, oh, I need more exit interviews. I need more surveys. I need more ways to make sure they don't know how to cancel. I'm like, that's fucked up. That's not how you fix churn. How you fix churn is onboarding and activation and making sure you're selling the right fucking customers. It's the same with your hiring process. If you have a shitty culture, if things aren't going well, if there's not a sense of accountability, if you feel like people on your team are not the kind of people you want on your team, it starts with the hiring process. It doesn't start with like, oh, I need more of this and this and this. Like a lot of people try to fix things through volume and effort, when in reality, it's like one simple hinge that you need to change. And so often when the people are feeling that in their team, it's not that you need to change all these things. You need to be like training more accountability, more this, more just hammering it in. It's like, no, you have the wrong people. The right people it wouldn't feel so fucking hard with.
I completely agree with that. So if I've learned anything in life when it comes to people and relationships, it's one thing in particular. People do not change. Even if someone really wants to change who they are and they go through therapy and all this self-development and they really work on themselves, the odds of them actually changing into someone different than who they actually are right now is incredibly low. So you need to keep that in mind when you're hiring people. Who you're looking at today is who they're going to be in the job. And then once you hire them and you start working with them, you start training them, don't try to gaslight yourself into thinking that they're going to be someone else in the future if you just keep training them. So if you hire someone and you onboard them and they're just not a good cultural fit, or maybe they're not coachable or whatever it might be, you need to just let them go immediately and just move on.
When you hire someone, it's really hard to know at first if you made the right choice, but there are leading indicators of if they're the right person. You should feel immediately a sense of relief. Now, that doesn't mean that they've like suddenly taken a ton off your plate, but you feel that there is hope. You see that they have good pieces of feedback for you. You see that they are taking on things more quickly. You see that your life is going to get easier by this person joining the team. And I'd say that the last thing is that other people on the team all have good things to say about them.
I'm actually going through this right now with an operations manager that I just hired. And if you've hired a decent amount of people in your career before and in your business, you can tell literally from day one if someone is the right fit or not. When you go to train them and you see how coachable they are, you see the ideas they bring to the table, you see if they just get it or not, you can very quickly tell if this is going to be someone who's going to bring new ideas, who's someone's going to make your life easier. Or on the flip side, if this person's going to require a lot of heavy lifting to train and manage, and they really just don't even know anything of substance or value, they don't really have any good skills to contribute. Ideally, what you want in a perfect world is you hire someone that come into your business and they start offering you ideas that you weren't even thinking about. They immediately start executing on different strategies or improvements to your business that you didn't even ask them to do. They take their experience from other businesses that they've worked in and other roles that they've had in the past, and they can immediately take that experience and apply it to what you're doing to help speed up your growth. You don't want to bring someone in that has no idea what they're doing and basically just give them a free education on your dime. I actually just hired a new operations manager for this staffing company, funny enough, and right from the initial interview, it was so clear that this guy was the perfect fit. Not only did he have a great attitude, and he just understood it. He was saying things in the interview like, Chris, my goal is to come into your business and help bring your vision to life. I'm going to execute on that. I'm going to operate the day-to-day. I'm going to give you all the information and data that you need to easily and quickly make decisions. So when I start hearing those things in an interview with the guy that I'm going to be heavily reliant on, and I can tell that he just gets it. He understands how to support me. He has the right mindset. That's obviously very attractive to me when I'm looking to hire somebody. And then once we hired him and we brought him on board and we onboarded him and he's getting up to speed, obviously for the first week or two, he's really just like trying to drink from a fire hose and learn everything that he doesn't know. But instead of me having to break down every single little thing that I need him to do and really hold his hand, I was able to very quickly tell from his ideas and everything that he was explaining to me that he was going to be able to contribute different ideas and plans that I didn't even have to give them direction with in the first place?
The first one is that we all have confirmation bias, right? So get this, 60% of interviewers will make a decision about a candidate in the first 15 minutes, okay? So you could have an hour-long interview, 60% of people decide in the first 15 minutes. So basically what they do is they decide in the first 15 minutes based on typically one thing that person says or does. And then they spend the rest of the interview trying to justify or confirm their bias. So I'll give you some examples. If somebody comes on and at first they're shy, or they're not smiling, or their camera's off if it's a Zoom interview, you will spend the rest of the interview most likely trying to confirm why that person isn't a good fit because of that one action. Now, I've seen this backfire because I've had people hop on and they don't have their camera on, and I'm like, somebody has told me before, they're like, yeah, oh, I don't want to hire them because they didn't have their camera on. I'm like, did they know it was a Zoom interview? And then, I go back and ask the person when I interview them, and they're like, dude, I'm so sorry, I thought it was a phone interview. Like, I thought the invite didn't even say, and the last 3 interviews I've been on, they were all phone. So I'm like, oh, right? Because we tend to assume rather than lead with curiosity. Another example of that would be, if someone hops on and, let's be really real, their personality, like, they're not enthusiastic, they're more quiet, and you're the driven, excited, enthusiastic entrepreneur, and you're like, oh, I just immediately don't like this person. Like, what you say is they're not a culture fit. Just because someone's less enthusiastic and they're not as upbeat as you does not mean that they're not a good culture fit. That just means they might be quiet. And I've had some of the absolute killers be people who are very quiet on interviews, and they take time to warm up to you, and they've been some of the best people I've ever hired.
All right, so I've been so guilty of this, it's not even funny. I suffer from confirmation bias so much when interviewing people, and as a result, I've made a ton of bad hires over my career. What I've actually found is that I would go into interviews and I was very guilty of being biased towards people that I liked or that were more similar to me than other people who were very different than me. This is a terrible decision-making framework when hiring, and I've actually had the same experience that she mentioned where I'm talking to somebody, I'm very driven, I've got a ton of energy, I'm so enthusiastic about my mission and what I'm building and everything, and then this person comes in and they're a little bit lower energy, they're more chill, they don't have that upbeat energy that I do in the interview. And then as a result, I just start liking them less, and then everything that comes out of their mouth, I'm just kind of framing it up as someone that I'm not really interested in hiring. But this is a terrible, terrible framework, because what I've come to notice is that I need people like that. I need people that are chill, that are grounded, that move slowly, because me, as the founder, the CEO, I'm all over the place. I'm moving back and forth, shifting gears. I'm working on a ton of different things with different departments. And I need people who are grounded in whatever role or department that they're in, and they're in the weeds, and they're happy moving slowly, thinking things through. They're more meticulous, and it's a great balance to me and my personality and how I work day to day. So if you go into the interview and you're biased towards not hiring people like that because they're different than you, you're really shooting yourself in the foot. You don't want to build a company that's full of people who are exactly like you. Otherwise, you're going to be missing tons of perspectives, tons of ideas, and you're not going to be as well-rounded.
Something that I like to ask people on interviews, I'm like, listen, let me tell you something about myself that's not so good, right? And then I'm like, I'm kind of a control freak. Here's something that I did. And I actually fucked up really bad yesterday on this thing. And I try to share something vulnerable with them that I've messed up on. And I say, great, so here's the thing. We all have shit. You've just told me all the stuff that's amazing about you. I want to know the shit though, because I want to know if it's shit that I have a strength to match with so I can help you. In that moment, if somebody opens up and tells me the truth, I don't really care how bad it is, because everyone has shit. It's just to what degree do you have shit? It's the people who tell me they don't. That tells me they just demonstrated they don't have sincere candor, because everybody has stuff that they're bad at.
That's great. I've actually never done that before. I'm going to start doing that in all interviews moving forward. Some of the principles that I really try to instill in my own company come from Ray Dalio's book, Principles: Radical Transparency and Radical Honesty. So if someone can't be sincere and authentic and open up and be vulnerable and just be honest and be a real person, it's going to be really tough having them in my company when everyone else is doing that. The reason I have this in my culture is because really all we care about is progress. And in order to progress as quickly as possible and as much as possible, we need everyone just being an open book, sharing their ideas, sharing things they don't agree with, being radically honest and radically transparent. Now, if you do something like she said in the interview and the person can't even share even one little thing with you, I think that'd be a red flag if you're trying to build the same kind of culture that I have.
Now, the fourth one is, again, one that I see all the time, which is similarity bias. And guys, I'm so guilty of this. When we were growing Gym Launch, I was so bad at this. The similarity bias is basically we naturally want to surround ourselves with people that we like and people that are like us. And so naturally, we like people who are like us and have, similar interests, behaviors, leaders, ways of talking, etc. And so a lot of the times what happens is in the beginning, I would say all the way up until 10 million, people have really like homogeneous teams. Like they all seem like almost the same person, same character traits, just really similar. It's almost like they talk the same way, they walk the same way, they look the same way, like everyone's the same. A big reason that people can't get past that mark is because there's really no diversity of thinking. And I think a lot of people talk about diversity and they talk about like color of your skin, ethnicity, and culture and all these things. And I'm like, dude, no offense, but like, I don't even pay attention to that. I pay attention to the diversity of thinking. I'm like, dude, we have people that have different points of views on this team, because the more variety in terms of points of views you have, the better decisions you'll make as a team. And a lot of times people are just uncomfortable with what is different from them. And so because of that, they try to hire people that seem like them, and that's why you see a lot of friends and families that are hired, because not because the person's qualified for the job. That's actually often not the case. Typically we see the best in people that seem like us, and we see the best in people that are familiar to us. And so we're very biased toward why they should be hired. But if someone else goes to interview them, they would probably see, oh, this person's not fit at all. They don't see all the similarities because they might be different, and they don't see all the good things about them because they might not be, already have a relationship with them. And so it's really important in the situations where you feel very much inclined towards somebody, like you really like them, to have somebody else interview them, because oftentimes it's just us being biased because we like them for one reason or another, Like I remember there was a guy I was interviewing and I really liked him because he was the operator at a large company and he had very similar personality to me, and he actually was also raised in Michigan. And so I was like, dude, I just love this guy. He's amazing. But like I had this feeling in the back of my head that he wasn't the right fit. Like I just like kind of was like, and so like I brought him to the team and I was like, guys, I feel like he might not be, and I just like really like the guy because he's similar to me and we have like a lot of things in common. So I feel like I would like working with him. Can you guys interview him? And they were all like, dude, this is a hard no. And I was like, oh fuck.
This is pretty much what I was saying earlier, where I did the same thing all the time. I would find people that looked like me, sounded like me, that I would be able to hang out with maybe as like a friend, or thought it would be like more enjoyable or fun working with them. And I would just have a bias towards them, even if I tried really hard not to. This is one of the number one reasons why I stopped doing interviews myself. I try not to interview anyone at all. I will only have my team do it. I'll meet people before I hire them and do a final test on them. But as far as the actual interviews leading up to the shortlisted candidates and who I actually end up meeting, I will not interview anybody. I'm notoriously bad at this. I will have confirmation bias, like she was talking about earlier. I will have similarity bias. And what is really most important to me is just making the right decision, regardless of whether or not I would hang out with them outside of work and business, which doesn't matter at all if you're really just focused on progress and success. The only thing that you really need to find is the right cultural fit, the right skill set, the right experience, the right person to plug into whatever the role is within your company and produce the most output humanly possible while getting along with their colleagues, while contributing positively to the culture. So, moral of the story, this is a great reason to have someone else conduct interviews for you so that you don't bring your own bias into the interview and then ultimately into the decision about who you end up hiring. It is far too painful to mishire, spend a ton of time training people, then have to kick them to the curb because of your bias, you hire the wrong person, and then have to repeat the process. And maybe you didn't even learn from your bias and mistake in the first place, and you keep repeating the same mistake over and over and over. You're going to spin your wheels. You're not going to scale or make any progress. Last point on this particular topic, just to reiterate what I said earlier in the video, it's actually great to find people that are not like you because, like Leila said, you want diversity of thought. I don't care at all about what people look like, what color their skin is, anything like that. That's completely silly. It doesn't matter. What I'm really focused on is what's going on in their mind. How did they think? Now, hiring people from other cultures, maybe somewhere in Asia or Latin America or somewhere in South Africa, all of those people are going to think differently purely because they live in a different place and they come from a different culture. With this in mind, this is very helpful to your business as opposed to hiring people in your local city who are very similar to you, probably think very similarly, maybe even like the exact same way. When you bring in all these diverse perspectives and thought processes and different ways of seeing the world, you're going to have so many different ideas. You'll come up with so many different solutions that you wouldn't have had otherwise. This is one of the top reasons why I only hire people outside the US and why I'm such a fan of doing this.
For this first day, I used to be up there for 3 parts of it. And then what I did is I was like, hey, I actually had a surgery that I had to do. So I actually can't do this event in a month. And I was like, who wants to take it? And it was like, everyone was terrified. And then all of a sudden, I look at the NPS scores and they were just as high. And I was like, well then, Frank, you have a new presentation. As do you, Neil. People don't even know what they're capable of until you put them in that position. Just gotta throw them in, be like, fuck it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
So many entrepreneurs are afraid of hiring people for specific roles, or sometimes really just in general, because they don't think that whoever they're going to hire and throw into the fire is going to be able to do as good of a job as they can do. Now, I used to have this fear myself. I was a bit of a control freak, and I'd be afraid to hand over roles or tasks because I just thought the person was going to screw it up. But what ended up happening, and what I have noticed time and time again, is that I'm actually not as good at stuff as I think I am. And what I end up finding is that the people that I hire and stick into those roles, they do way better than I do. And I've ultimately just ended up looking around over the years after hiring so many people, and I'm like, shit, what am I actually even good at? Because I've hired so many people that have come in and replaced what I was doing and end up taking it to a whole nother level and doing it at such a better quality. So moral of the story, if you think that you're good at everything, I guarantee that you're not. Start replacing yourself as soon as humanly possible. That's how you're gonna scale. That's how you're gonna free up enough time to be able to work on other high value tasks.
Every time I have made the right hire, I've been uncomfortable bringing that person on. I have not felt amazing about the decision. I've felt excited, yet nervous, and also sort of fearful because there's this unknown, because this kind of person has different thinking than me. They don't act like me. They're very different than me. And so because of that, I'm not certain how they will act. I cannot easily predict them. We typically want to bring people on the team that we like because when we like someone and we understand them, we think we can predict their behavior. When you bring someone on who has diversity of thinking, they think differently, they have different experience, they come from a different background, typically we feel very uncomfortable because we can't predict what they're going to do or how they're going to act. And so I want to tell you, overall, above all of this, if you bring someone on and you're hiring someone and you actually feel slightly uncomfortable, not because they're bad for the role, but because they're unfamiliar to you, or maybe intimidating, or maybe because you feel like you can't predict them, that is a good thing. And so often in these situations, it's a little bit of going against your gut, because your gut's not going to lead you to building the best team. Your gut's going to lead you to building a team that's just a bunch of replicas of who you already are.
That's a great point, actually. Your gut is not going to lead you to building the best team. Your gut's actually going to help you build a team of people who are replicas of who you are, which is not what you want, like we've discussed many times. Look, hiring in and of itself is inherently risky. You're hiring a human being. Human beings are very complicated. You really don't know who they are until you start working with them for a while, and it takes a long time to unpack what's going on in their brain. And because of that alone, and because that applies to every single person on earth without exceptions, there's always going to be a risk in hiring. Now, in our done-for-you recruitment service, we actually give all of our clients a 6-month guarantee on the placement. This helps eliminate a substantial amount of the risk, because if for whatever reason the client has a problem with the person they hired within 6 months, we just replace them for free. That's probably the closest that you could possibly come in any scenario with any kind of offer or anything in the world when it comes to hiring, with reducing the risk as much as humanly possible. But at the end of the day, you're going to be uncomfortable when you're making a decision on who to hire. It's very rare that you're going to go through a recruitment process and then you're going to find someone and you're going to be 100% confident without a shadow of a doubt that they're going to crush it. And if you are, then you have to remember that you might be having similarity bias or confirmation bias. Then you don't even know if they're the right person anyways. So the main takeaway is it's completely okay to feel uncomfortable when hiring someone, because there's always risk with hiring human beings. All right, so that's Leila Hormozi's brutally honest hiring advice. And to be honest, I don't even think it's brutal. It's just real. And if you're a business owner looking to hire top tier remote talent without wasting months on bad hires, training the wrong people, or dealing with turnover, that's exactly what we help you do. We place A-player virtual assistants directly into your business for any remote role. And we handle all the screening, all the vetting, all the interviews, and we make sure that every person that you hire is an A player who will move your business forward. If you're interested, just click the link in the description to book a call. And if you want to see Alex Hormozi's brutally honest hiring advice, just click the video on the screen.